Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 84 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast for all things vegan. Episodes post every Monday on your favorite podcast app. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Do you love the podcast? Would you get a kick out of hearing a shout out on a future episode? How about time to connect virtually with me and other listeners quarterly or monthly? If you're a vegan business who would like to sponsor episodes of Did You Bring the Hummus, I'd love to chat. Find out more under the Support the Podcast tab on my website. I've been asked a few times now to offer guidance on public speaking, specifically for those who are terrified, but know that facing this fear is what will take them to the next level in their business, their career, or life in general. I am now offering one-on-one support. Check out the Public Speaking 101 tab on my website to learn more and schedule a free call to find out if I'm a good fit to help you navigate this journey. Today, I am joined by Robert Cheeke. Robert grew up on a farm in Corvallis, Oregon, where he adopted a vegan lifestyle in 1995 at age 15, weighing just 120 pounds. Today, he is the author of the books Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, Shred It, Plant-Based Muscle, the New York Times bestseller, The Plant-Based Athlete, and his latest, The Impactful Vegan, to be released next week on June 25th, 2024. He is often called the godfather of vegan bodybuilding, growing the industry from its infancy in 2002 to where it is today. As a natural bodybuilding champion, Robert is considered one of Veg News magazine's most influential vegan athletes. He tours the world, sharing his story of transformation from skinny farm kid to champion vegan bodybuilder. Robert founded Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness and maintains the website veganbodybuilding.com. He is a regular contributor to Forks Over Knives, the Center for Nutrition Studies, Vegan Strong, and No Meat Athlete. He's a former multi-sport athlete and has followed a plant-based diet for over 28 years. Robert lives in Colorado with his wife and Chihuahua. Hey, Robert, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm so glad. I'm really excited about our conversation. We both have a real shared love for Peter Singer. And so when I started to learn more about you and I realized that made me even more excited to hear about what you're up to lately and what you have going on. But before we get to all that good stuff, I love to start with the guest vegan journey. So tell me, how did you get here?
Well, you picked a really good day to ask that because I am sitting in the home I grew up in on the farm that I was raised on, where I was born here in Corvallis, Oregon, which is where I'm coming to you from today during the interview. And this is where it all started for me. Right here on the farm, you might even hear some chickens or roosters in the background or some cows. You might hear them through the window chatting or saying hi. And so let me walk you back to the late 1900s, as I like to say, because that's what I know.
I sound old.
Yeah, I know. I'm aging myself there, dating myself, I guess is the expression. But yeah, I became vegan in the late 1900s. So growing up on a farm, I raised animals, all sorts of animals. I was in 4-H. I raised animals for the 4-H program, from dairy calves to chickens to rabbits. These are all animals I showed at the fair, but we also had turkeys and geese and ducks and goats and horses and ponies and cows and everything except for pigs and sheep. And we had pretty much all the other traditionally farmed animals on our farm out here in beautiful Corvallis, Oregon. And I raised those animals. I built up a relationship with them, much like you would with a dog or a cat. For those who don't live on a farm and may have pets of different variety of species. And so I had this appreciation for them. I had baby calves that would follow me around and that I would bottle feed before going to school and getting on the school bus. And then they would be excited when I would come home and I was their companion, their friend. And that was true for some chickens. That was true for some rabbits. That was true for a number of animals, except the turkeys that just like to chase me. But aside from that, I had and the geese that wanted to squawk at me, and some guinea fowl that would fly and run away. But for the most part, I built up this appreciation for farmed animals. I didn't really even recognize them as commodities necessarily, except for the fact that I myself was raising them and then selling them at an auction to be turned into someone else's food so I could get some money, because that was part of the 4-H program. And so it all started with my older sister, Tanya. She was just with me a moment ago. She left a couple hours ago, but I just spent the past week hanging out with her. She was my vegan inspiration. She led by example. She became vegetarian at a young age, kind of like Lisa Simpson from The Simpsons, who had this compassion side to her and looked at animals as individuals who had their own desires to live a life free of fear, pain, and suffering. And we experienced that on the farm we grew up on. Animals with their own families, raising their own babies, their own interest to live freely and run around and do what they wanted to do. So she became a vegetarian years before I was ever interested in it. And then she organized this animal rights week at our high school. Now, mind you, this is the mid 1990s. Most of us don't have the internet. We don't even know how to use it. We don't have computers at home. This is before all of that. It's right around the time the public internet came around. And so, out of respect for my older sister, who I looked up to naturally, I decided I would attend this Animal Rights Week, participate, whatever the heck that meant. So I went to the cafeteria and got these vegan baked goods and such, and went to the auditorium during off periods where she had arranged this through the school to have presentations by perhaps people kind of like me who would go and give presentations about animal rights and show videos, many black and white back then, black and white videos of factory farming, large scale industrialized factory farming, animal testing. Those are ones that particularly got to me. And we read literature, including some black and white literature back then, from Vegan Outreach, from PETA, from other organizations, about the plight of animals and their uphill battle to having rights or freedoms, or to be treated with any type of compassion, and this incredible uphill climb that they're faced with, especially in this booming era of industrialized factory farmed animal agriculture, where they're raised for the sole purpose of slaughtering them and feeding a population that we can easily feed with enough plant-based crops if we were wise enough and resourceful enough to do so. And so it was December 8th, 1995. I know that date well. I celebrate that vegan anniversary every year. That's the day that I started. And I figured I'd give it a try for a week. I didn't have aspirations of doing this long term, but I was there to support my sister, and I figured the week will pass and I'll go back to my regular life as a 5-sport athlete and someone who enjoyed going to McDonald's or Sandwich Express every day, and who loved chicken and bacon as favorite foods, or at least some of my favorite foods. But something clicked that week, and I decided that I owed it to the animal companions I had back at home. I owed it to, I guess, just even the philosophy of moral animal rights ethics to stick with it, despite my own aspirations of wanting to be this pro wrestler or this muscle guy, and being and having no business doing that, being a really pretty small kid. For context, I weighed 89 and a quarter pounds in 8th grade, barely over 100 pounds in high school. I was like one of the smallest guys on the basketball team and soccer team, and kept getting knocked around in sports, and I wanted to get bigger and stronger, and I wasn't sure that I could do it without animal protein. And so I went back to my sister, and I asked her, because I was influenced by the ads back then that were quite popular, that milk does a body good, the commercials, and the guys that were getting bigger and stronger, and the deeper and deeper voice, and they're drinking more milk, and I would drink so much I would basically vomit over the porch in our farmhouse, because I was trying to be like that. And I knew beef was what's for dinner. I mean, we raised animals ourselves, and so I questioned that. And basically, she told me, Robert, at the end of the day, we don't need meat, milk, and eggs. We need the nutrition that's commonly associated with those things. We
Mm.
need protein, we need calcium, we need vitamins, minerals, we need these types of things. And they come in their original form from plants. So I said, okay, I'll stick, I'll stick with it. I'll give it a try. And honestly, it didn't work super well for me at first. I was 15 years old, didn't have a lot of my own money. I knew what I didn't want to eat. I knew what I did not want to eat, but I wasn't sure what to eat. And so I just ate things like bread rolls and sesame seed bagels and chips and salsa and spaghetti and hemp-based, believe it or not, hemp-based ice cream, and not a lot of nutrition.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel very well, especially as a 5-sport athlete. So I had to figure it out. And we had all kinds of fruit trees. I mean, they're still here on the farm, many of them. Apple trees and plum trees and pear trees and berries and garden full of food and all that. So once I figured things out that I really just needed to eat real food, then I took off running. And
Mm.
just to fast forward along, 2 years later, I was organizing the Animal Rights Week at our high school when I was a senior. I had numerous vegan friends back in, again, the 1990s. Uh, I, I was still a 5-sport athlete. I played multiple varsity sports. I went on to be a runner in college, and then I got interested in the sport of weightlifting, which I had no business doing for most of my life. And the rest of the story. I went on to become a champion vegan bodybuilder and really pioneered the vegan bodybuilding industry more than 2 decades ago. Filmed a documentary called Vegan Fitness Built Naturally 20 years ago.
Wow.
2004 came out 2005. So I filmed it 20 years ago and, sold thousands of DVDs, toured around the country with that. And I wrote 5 books on the subject. I'm building your body on a plant-based diet. One of them became a New York Times bestseller called The Plant-Based Athlete. And I've been on a speaking tour for the past 19 years. And I'm heading to my next stop in less than a week. And so I was compelled to live this lifestyle and to follow this path to help animals get a better chance at life. And that was my defining reason. I mean, I wanted to show people, especially as a small kid, that I
Yeah.
could build my body without animal protein. That was the whole reason behind it.
Hmm.
Yes, I was a fan of He-Man and Captain Planet and pro wrestling, and I wanted to be something that I wasn't. Many of us are drawn to that for my own personal interest, but it really, honestly, truly, my whole initial objective, which still fuels me today, 3 decades later, was to show people that you can build your body without animal protein so that other people would be inspired or encouraged or feel confident that they could do the same. And luckily that has worked out. Luckily, over the last few decades, many people have followed that lead and have gone on to accomplish things that I never did in athletics and in bodybuilding and far surpassed whatever I did. And I was just an early adopter and someone who was there to fill that role,
Mhm.
to help carve that path because someone needed to do it. And I was in the right place at the right time and had great mentors in my older sister and other role models who, including Peter Singer, who helped really build and initiate and create this animal rights movement decades before me,
Mhm.
who helped carve that path out for many of us to follow. So that's where it all started, and that's just ironically right where I am at this exact moment, talking to you as I'm visiting my family.
So I love all of this so much, but I'm hearing the questions that I get from pre-vegans, I'll call them, all the time about how we nourish ourselves, and especially from a, a male perspective. How do you become big and strong eating just plants? How did you
Yeah,
do it?
yeah. The real answer is super simple. You basically have to eat a calorie surplus. Basically, that means eat more calories than you're expending or burning throughout the day, and combine that with resistance weight training. And that's how you build muscle. You eat more fuel than you're expending. End of story. Now, of
Mm.
course, it's much more complex than that, but at its basic level, that's it. I can tell you there's other nuances to that. I mean, first, you have to have the ambition, you have to have the drive, you have to have the reason. You have to have your why. And
Mm.
I had mine. I wanted to do this for animals. I wanted to show that you did not need to eat animals in order to build your body. And so that was my why. That was my driving force. That kept me going when things got tough, or when I was tempted by the foods that I used to love, or when I was in a tough spot somewhere, traveling internationally or whatever in those early days, but deciding I'm just going to fast instead until I get to where I can find produce and all of that. That why always kept me going. And I
Mhm.
also had the other why. The other why was that I wanted to be something that I wasn't. When you are, we can all relate to this in one way or
Yeah.
another. When you're picked on or pushed around, or easy target or whatever, you get kind of tired of that. And being bigger and stronger was something that would essentially protect me from that, or help me, uh, and help me accomplish something that I never was, which was to be big and strong. And so I had that compelling why as well. And
Mm.
so I look back now, I give presentations all over the world. I even just recently was in a few different countries. And I talk about what that was like in those early days. It's almost like someone who's new to fitness, uh, go in the gym pursuing their New Year's resolution.
Mm.
It's uncomfortable. You're being judged and all these types of things. And it was basically laughable. Me, as a pretty small, thin kid in the gym with these aspirations of being this bodybuilder guy. I'm in there lifting little weights. That's what I can handle now. And people, including perhaps some of my fellow team members on various sports, other athletes, friends, peers, would actually probably laugh at me a little bit or tease me, like, this is, Robert, you're a really good long distance runner, which I was. I ran cross country for Oregon State University for a year. Like, just stick with that, but check
Mhm.
in with my heart, that real why. I want to do this. I believe that I can do this. And so I would say to people, yeah, maybe not now.
Mm.
Maybe I'm not going to get real big and strong now, but imagine a year from now, or you just wait till 5 years from now, or
Mm.
10 years from now. And sure enough, that's what I did. And I had to answer your question very specifically, I had to get some sort of blueprint or formula to follow. And that's where I stumbled upon the Bill Phillips Body for Life program, because I had tried to build muscle for a whole year, and I gained 1 pound.
Oh.
Um, I mean, pretty, pretty, laughable. Like, I should just kind of stick to what I'm good at, because this is not working for me. So I tried for a whole year, and I'm talking like with all the enthusiasm I can muster, and I'm a pretty high enthusiasm guy. I was looking at muscle magazines. I was going to the nutrition store, this is the late '90s, to find sports supplements to help me, protein powders. I'm discovering these things for the first time, and yeah, I just gained 1 pound in the whole year. But then I came across this Bill Phillips Body for Life program, probably the most successful body transformation program in history, or at
Mm.
least in American history. And I did this program. And basically, the tenets of this program, like the system, is to exercise 6 days a week, but never more than an hour, just 52-minute workouts, 46-minute workouts, but they're prescribed. It shows you exactly what exercises to do, and for how many reps and how many sets and all of that. And then there was a prescribed nutrition program to eat 6 meals a day, 3 big meals, 3 small meals, basically as snacks in between. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between. And of course, they were marketing all kinds of whey protein. It was part of the business thing, sell the book, and then the book sells the products, and you make money on both ends and all this stuff. So I just did a vegan version of that. I knew what they were talking about when they're saying eat chicken breast or salmon or whatever. And I just found I ate tofu instead, tempeh
Mm.
instead, lentils and beans instead, burritos, plant-based burritos instead, plant-based protein powders instead. And I'm telling you, Kimberly, I did this program. It's a 12-week program.
Mhm.
Nothing changed. I basically did it a week after I tried for a year. So I'm not like I'm years older. I'm a week older. I'm
Yeah.
not like I matured and now in my 20s. No, I'm still like this 19-year-old. I'm still figuring everything out. And let me do the math here. I put on 19 pounds in 12 weeks.
Wow.
And I figured, well, this is working. Let's keep going. So I put on 28 pounds over the course of 10 months.
Hmm.
And then by the next year, I was a competitive bodybuilder. So basically what I did was I was holding myself accountable through this program, which I wasn't on my own. On my own, I was working out too much. I was a former runner. I was still running. I used to ride a bike. I was cycling. I was doing all these push-ups, crunches, cardiovascular training plus weight training. I was burning all these calories, and then I was just kind of eating whenever I felt like it. Not the 6 times a day, very consistent nutritional intake and all of that. So basically, I was burning all these calories, not consuming enough, and that's why I gained virtually 0 pounds and for that whole year. But then when I was in this program of calorie surplus, with again a focus on things like protein that are important for muscle recovery, muscle building, and muscle growth, and all that. And I cut down on the exercise and just did these 45-minute workouts, 52-minute workouts. The results were incredible. And so I ended up in just a few years, really 3, 4, 5 years, I put on about 75 pounds. And then, so I went from 120 to 195 pounds and was this competitive bodybuilder for a decade. And then I eventually retired from bodybuilding, but still trained and got up to 220 pounds so that I could say I put on a full 100 pounds on a plant-based diet, which I did.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. I can, there's more nuances as far as like using the Harris Benedict calculator to determine based on your gender, age, height, weight, and activity level, how many calories you expend per day, and then using MyFitnessPal and Chronometer to track your calorie intake to see if you're in a surplus, which helps you add weight, or if you're a deficit, which helps you lose weight, and all these different things, and documenting and recording things, either pen and paper or with an app these days. There's all those things, and they are super helpful. But the main thing is just to be super consistent and accountable, and that's how you do it.
Yeah. Thank you. Good. So now anytime somebody asks me this question, I'm pointing them to this podcast episode.
That's what I've been doing for 30 years. I know it so well. That's why it's even almost hard to explain it, because I'm overlooking certain things. Like I didn't mention how much protein to consume. You should be consuming 1.2 to 2.0 grams per kilogram of body weight if you're trying to build muscle, because that just is like so second nature to me. I almost forget to explain it when giving a talk or doing a podcast interview. And there's things like using compound multi-joint movements like squats and bench press and deadlifts if you're able to, and T-bar rows and bent over rows and dumbbell exercises and shoulder presses and all of these things, and doing those within a certain rep range, typically 8 to 12, but lower reps for higher strength, and doing extra cardiovascular training to build up endurance and heart and lung strength, and to get more reps, and certain rest periods, then recovery with like heat and ice and rest and stretching and sports massage therapy and yoga and all this stuff. So it is more complex than that. But honestly, Kimberly, I was not sophisticated at all with my initial approach. It was all just hard work. It was just work ethic. I didn't know anything about nutrition until I studied it and took courses on it and read books on it and learned from T. Colin Campbell and many others, and took their courses and then wrote books and all of that. And I still had success because I knew enough. I knew enough to get the ball rolling. And that's what I encourage people to do these days. You can, even without having to know it inside and out, if you just consume the right amount of calories, the right amount of protein, have the proper work ethic and consistency in the gym, anybody can do this. And you don't know until you put it to the test. And so for all the male listeners out there, especially, who are worried about getting enough protein or being able to build your body on a plant-based diet, I'm just one of many people who have done it. And I've written entire books on it, tons of articles on it, lots of interviews and conversations about it. And the thing is just to believe that you can do it. Know there's a track record of people like me who have done it, and done it dramatically. And I became a multi-time champion vegan bodybuilder. That means I've placed ahead of other people who eat chickens all day long and eat fish and cows and all these things. And I still perform better than them in a sport about building muscle. And so and many people have been more successful than me in doing that. I'm just one. And so I want people to walk away from this with confidence, knowing that you absolutely can do this and the food can be delicious. I mean, I eat burrito bowls and I had this red tofu curry last night that was awesome.
Mm,
And I eat tacos and sandwiches and wraps and pad thai and uh, fried rice and sushi and pizza and burgers that are all plant based. And so
yeah.
you can do all that stuff and still build your body while enjoying the foods that you love. And
Mhm.
I'm just pleased that I've been able to do that and be able to share that with a lot of people over the years.
Yeah. That is very helpful. I appreciate all of that very much. Um, so you mentioned that you're on a speaking tour and that is focused around a new book that you have coming out, right? Called The Impactful Vegan. So tell me about this book. Why this book? Why now? What's it about? Give me all the details.
Okay, you want all of them?
All of them.
You can already tell I'm long-winded in my answers, but really, actually, the real story is a pretty interesting one. So I'll just start with that. I've always been focused on effectiveness and having a high impact for animals. That's just been my MO. That's been my approach to vegan advocacy long before I knew different expressions or different names for that type of advocacy, which I'll mention here in a moment. And so I always had that. Like I wanted to make a difference. I figured I had a moral obligation to
Mm,
make a difference for animals and to help other people too on a path to a better health, on a quest to help the planet. It was just, I was always into helping make a difference in the lives of others, humans and non-humans alike. It's just inherent in me. It's an innate quality. I'm just lucky, I guess, that I've had that, or at least I've had it as soon as my sister helped open my eyes to that kind of reality or that kind of future, and then the support that I was given by friends and family to some degree, and my community during those early years. So I was already an impactful vegan in my own head or in my own thoughts or in my own eyes as I perceived the work that I do. But then I was out, I was fresh off becoming a New York Times bestseller for the first time with the plant-based athlete and feeling really good about that. And my book was
mm,
in all these languages. It's in 9 languages worldwide, and it was already in maybe 6 or 7 of them. And I was looking for my next project. A writer writes. That's what we do.
mm,
And so I was looking to write the next book. And so I thought, you know what? I've really covered this plant-based fitness thing. And I went out with a bang with the New York Times bestseller that's in all these languages. I had self-published 3 or 4 books on the same subject, vegan bodybuilding and fitness, shredded, plant-based muscle, plant-based athlete. I'd written all these books. I've published 1,000 pages. How much more can I say about what I summed up in 5 or 10 minutes to you? Um, I didn't have much to add on that topic, and I thought it was time to let that go and get back to my roots.
mm,
A lot of people, I think of me or thought of me, especially if they discovered me in recent years as kind of the plant-based fitness guy. Not knowing that I have this moral and ethical vegan background from growing up on a farm, and that's the entire foundation of my veganism is this moral imperative to make a difference for animals. And I thought, that's something that I could write about and
mm,
really change it up and do something different. So I live out in Fort Collins, Colorado these days. And so I was over in Boulder at the big Boulder bookstore. It's this 3-story bookstore. And I was looking for Peter Singer's Animal Liberation. And I didn't find it. They didn't have a copy of it. So they had another book by Peter Singer. It was called The Most Good You Can Do. And so I thought, okay, I'll pick that up. That sounds good. That's like right up my alley. I'm always trying to do the most good. I'm just one of those guys that I was always that kind of kid in school, also helping other people and looking out for those who other people ignore and trying to make everyone feel welcome. And um, I was always distributing things to the unhoused and people in need, and especially during the holiday season, I was always giving a lot of things to other people, and I was always interested in helping animals if I could, and beyond just my normal everyday vegan lifestyle. And so I saw this, The Most Good You Can Do, and Thought, let's see what that's all about. So I read that book and I loved it. I couldn't put it down. And it introduced this idea of effective altruism, about how to do the most good. You know,
Mm,
how to do, like, if you're gonna make a difference, why not do the actions that make the most good, that give you the most bang for your buck? And so, as you may know, Singer's book is all about how we can most effectively reduce global poverty, how we can help the world's poorest people. These are things like, if you have a set amount of money, is it better to do A, B, C, or D?
mhm,
And what's the impact of all these different things? So you could, is it better to help send anti-malaria bed nets to children in sub-Saharan Africa so they don't get bitten by mosquitoes and contracting malaria and dying? Or is it better to help prevent blindness in parts of the world where eye diseases are common, and people, lots of people by the millions uh,
mm,
end up blind? Or is it better to uh, do some things like feed the hungry in maybe an affluent country? Or and how do we compare that to other things that maybe don't have a direct impact on poverty, but should we donate to sick children? Should we donate to the arts? Should we donate to museums and theaters and those types of things?
mm,
Should we volunteer our time in helping with rehabilitation, or all these things? These are difficult philosophical questions to answer. But Peter Singer is one of the greatest living philosophers in the entire world, and he actually has answers,
mm,
where you can use systems of measurement to, and it sounds really bizarre, but you can actually calculate a certain level of suffering. That you can quantify it based
mm,
on all these different factors. Is person A, B, C, or D suffering the most, and what would it take to alleviate their suffering? And so the whole book is filled with all kinds of examples of how to most effectively reduce global poverty. And so that introduced me to William McCaskill, who wrote Doing Good Better, and he is a co-founder of the effective altruism movement.
mm.
And I read Doing Good Better, and actually I think I enjoyed it even more than Peter Singer's The Most Good You Can Do. And then William McCaskill became a very big influence on me as I wrote The Impactful Vegan.
Mm.
And that led me to reading Nick Cooney's book, How to Be Great at Doing Good. You can see a theme here. They're all very similar titles. They all came out
Mhm.
around the same time. They're all about this idea of effective altruism, which is maximizing the impact we have on others without expecting anything in return. It's not to get recognition. It's not to be given awards. It's not to be able to brag about it. It's not to be able to wait around until
Mm,
there's a natural disaster, or just wait around until the holidays or when it's cold weather to try to help people as a response to people asking for immediate. Look for ways to reduce suffering every day, all year round, and to maximize that reduction of suffering. And there were a few examples that really stuck with me. I'll share a couple. Um, for example, there was a scenario about, if you have a set amount of money, let's say $50,000,
mm,
because no matter what we're trying to do, and we all know this, whether we like to admit it or not, and I don't love this about society, but everything takes financial resources, no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's helping veterans, whether it's higher education, whether it's getting clean water to those who don't have it, whether it's feeding those in need, whether it's getting clothing or shelter for humans or animals that need it. Everything takes financial resources. Everything takes money, money, money. I'm not a huge fan of that, but that's the reality of the world that we live in. And if we're trying to help people and maximize our impact and our influence and our activeness, we need financial resources to do that. So one particular example was, for $50,000, you can train a seeing eye dog to help one person for
mm,
kind of the duration of that dog's life, for 8 or 9 or 10 years. So $50,000 to for a seeing eye dog for one person. Or there's this common, is it trachoma, something like that, a common eye disease that people get, I think in India or Nepal or Bangladesh or in that general region. And you can cure that blindness. You catch it in time, you can cure it for about $200.
Oh, wow.
200 US dollars. So here we are, there's $50,000 to help one person in an affluent country, let's say United States or Canada, with a seeing eye dog, or in other parts of the world where people are suffering just as much, if not greater, due to a variety of other factors. We can help thousands of individuals and prevent blindness for the next 50 years of their life, because many, apparently it's something people get at a young age, maybe teenage or in their 20s, and they'll be impacted for the next 50 years of their life based on average lifespans. But we can prevent that. And so that's just one example, many such examples of just comparing how far resources stretch to help this entity or that entity or these individuals. And so I applied these principles that I learned from Peter Singer and William McCaskill and Nick Cooney and others in The Impactful Vegan to be directed towards farmed animals. Because most of these books that I read were all about reducing human suffering. And especially poverty and helping the worst types of things that kill the most people. Whether it's malaria or diarrhea or all these blindness, which results in a lower quality of life, and all these different types of things. And so I wanted to write a book along the same lines, using many of the same themes of effective altruism to do the most good for farmed animals. And so I set out on a quest to do that. So I interviewed 30 or 40 of the world's leading vegan voices. These are nonprofit founders. These are for-profit presidents. These are activists and advocates, longtime vegans who've been vegans since the 1970s or 80s or 90s, people who are successful entrepreneurs, researchers, company founders, those who are company presidents or organization presidents and who are among the leaders of the most effective animal charity organizations in the world. And so I took not just my ideas from my 30 years of living a very impactful vegan life in a lot of ways, but I had a lot of my own ideas challenged as well by some of these people who I interviewed that brought new ideas for me to think about and for me to ponder and ways to impact large numbers of animals by the hundreds of millions or billions in ways that I wasn't really thinking about or focused on. And I was able to tell their stories. So I interviewed all these people, from Vicky Bond, who's the president of the Humane League, and how she was a veterinarian helping one animal at a time. But then she became the president of one of the world's leading animal welfare or animal advocacy organizations, where now she works with over 2,000 food companies to get them to change their processes of ordering foods. So getting foods like cage-free eggs and cage-free hens and cage-free gestation crate-free pigs and all these types of things to allow hundreds of millions of animals to live better lives, even if it's not total liberation and the thing that many of us are striving for. These are still steps that lead to improvements in lives, reduction of suffering for hundreds of millions of individuals. And interviewing people like Gene Bauer, who co-founded Farm Sanctuary, and the work that they do, not just to house and feed and take care of animals, but how they bring tens of thousands of people from the public to their farms and look at animals differently, the same way that I did when I grew up on a farm, and get moved and inspired by that, and how they've inspired thousands of other animal sanctuaries to sprout up all over the world and follow in their footsteps. And the food innovation technology that is happening in all the alternative protein space. The precision fermentation companies, like I interviewed Paul Shapiro and Bruce Friedrich from the Better Meat Company and from Good Food Institute, and talking about cultivated meat and the future of how we make meat, which then will hopefully get animals out of the food system, so they're not raising billions of them just to be processed and turned into food, where we can use animal cells, which has much greater reduction in suffering, and can use those in a lab to create the same meat, taste, feel, texture that everyone's used to, but without the suffering, or with a 99.9 reduction, 99.9% reduction in suffering. To entrepreneurs who are innovating in the food and beverage space, who have contributed significantly to the plant-based food and beverage product boom that we're seeing now, over $8 billion industry annually in the United States, and how they have created significant change and have done things like change menus and meal plans and getting animals off of menus and getting plants in their place, and how they're doing it effectively. And many other people that I interviewed and told their stories and shared their wisdom and their background, much like William McCaskill did and Peter Singer did in their books, where they told stories of all these other effective altruists that are doing great things throughout the world, whether they're helping people in developing countries get clean water, or get clean food, and or medicine and medications and all of that, and how they're saving or sparing lives on a large scale. I'm doing the exact same thing, but with farmed animals. And one of the organizations, for example, Food for Life Global, I interviewed their co-founder, Paul Rodney Turner, and they feed 1 million vegan meals to hungry children in the developing world every single day. Not every month, not every year. They feed 1 million meals every single day. Plant-based meals that are native cuisine to that culture in Kenya, Uganda, Paraguay, whatever country we're talking about, India, Morocco, wherever it is. And they do that because of the grants they're able to provide to individuals or organizations in those countries where the US dollar stretches so far. In fact, many of their grants are only 500 to 20,000 US dollars, and that can feed an exorbitant amount of people. I mean, they're able to do this on average for 50 cents per meal, and they've already fed 8.6 billion meals over the last 40 years. And as I said, at a current rate of 1 million vegan meals per day. And then I explain how they do that. They work with a number of companies, including plant-based and vegan companies that I'm friends with, or that I work with, or that I know of, and they contribute a percentage of their profits to Food for Life Global. So they send checks of thousands of dollars, and Food for Life Global then provides grants to those working largely in Africa, Asia, Central and South America. And they provide the food, and everything is recorded too, how many meals they provide each day. And that's how they have all the numbers. Those entities working in those developing countries give a report of what they're doing with the funds, and how many people they fed. And then, of course, people from Food for Life Global also go out and visit many of these operations as well, and have their own first person accounts and help with distributing those meals and all of that. And that's even something that I'm doing with the Impactful Vegan. I'm donating a vegan meal to a hungry child in the developing world with every book that is sold. Now that's only 50 cents per book sold, but as you will find out, or have already found out, depending on how much you've read of the Impactful Vegan, there's actually about 5 organizations that I'm contributing to as a result of writing this book, based on learning which ones do the most good to help animals. And that's one of the main themes in the book, is understanding how do we help the most animals? Like and which animals do we help? Is it chickens? Is it dairy cows? Is it pigs? Is it fish? Which ones do we prioritize based on level of suffering and based on total impact, the number of individuals that we can spare, These are all things that it brings in a lot of philosophy. For example, it takes about 150 individual chickens to create the same edible meat as one cow. Probably even closer to, could be 175 or so.
Mm.
So we're talking 100, let's just say 150. 150 individuals to one. And so if we have to make that decision, and if it's a decision we're forced with, then it's better to help the chickens
Mm.
because so many more of them are being consumed than cows. I mean, it's just, that's just what the numbers reveal.
Yeah.
It's 9 billion chickens domestically, 60 annually, 65 billion globally, compared to like just in the hundreds of millions for cows,
Mhm.
because they provide so much more edible calories.
Yeah.
And so we have to look at the size of the animal and their level of suffering, where certain animals are given more space, other animals are in worse conditions, never get a chance to go outside, can't even turn around, like sows in gestation crates, like layer hens stuck in pens where they can't even move around. Other animals are given much more uh, flexibility or ability to move around. And so all of these factor into which organizations we decide to help or contribute to. And then we also have to look at many non-financial ways of
Yeah.
helping. I mean, I have entire sections of the book about, let's say you don't have a lot of financial resources. Like I don't have a lot of them. I wish I did, but I don't. I try to do the best with what I've got, but I don't have lots of financial resources. Luckily, there's something called the Strong V that I created, and that's using our skills, talents, resources, other strengths, network, generosity, and volunteering to
Mm.
make a massive impact on reducing animal suffering by doing what we're naturally good at, like writing letters to the editor for major newspapers, giving presentations, working for a company and getting them to add all kinds of plant-based menu items to their corporate menus, which could be national or international, to volunteering at animal sanctuaries, to doing educational workshops and starting 30-day challenges, to writing articles that are, can be posted for free online and distributed widely, writing for magazines, leveraging social media to reach people with a positive vegan message, relying on our network that our friends, family, colleagues, we all know more people in positions of influence than we actually realize. People who are in charge of entire teams at their company, or someone who's in charge of ordering the food for banquets and parties and all of that, where you can do a plant-based by default approach, where the food is by default it's plant-based, and you'd have to upgrade if you wanted something besides that. Maybe upgrade's the wrong word, but if you wanted to, request something different, there's all these things we can do. I mean, I actually wrote a few down. Just they're all in the book, but
Mhm.
just to share today with you,
Yeah.
these things that don't cost any money, because I know people can get a little bit uneasy where, Peter Singer is always telling people to open their wallets and donate and donate and
Mhm.
donate. So is William McCaskill, and rightfully so. They've raised like $600 million to help animals, or sorry, to help people more effectively than than many other organizations are doing. I'm trying to do the same. I'm trying to
Mhm.
raise millions of dollars for people to help animals effectively. But I also wanted to share some examples that you don't have to open up your wallet if you're unable to
Yeah.
do it. For example, a couple real quick ones.
Sure,
Uh,
please.
my wife and I are season ticket holders at a dinner theater, Broadway style dinner theater. It seats about 300 people. They perform nightly, 2 shows on weekends. It's fantastic. It's great stuff. I love it. All the main musicals you can think of, they rotate there throughout the years. All the big ones. And so my wife and I first started going there a few years ago, and they didn't even have a vegan option on the menu, just vegetarian option we had to modify. So we filled out the comment cards and requested vegan food. And then the next time we came, a few months later, we did the same thing, requested vegan food, because we were still bringing in our own like
Mhm.
tofu in a bag or Tupperware container to add to our vegetables, and whatever modification we could make to the vegetarian meal. But we also met with the theater manager, who comes by and greets everyone, and tries to get you to become season ticket holders and all that. And then we became season ticket holders, which gave us a little bit more influence. But even if we didn't become season ticket holders, I'm sure our approach still would have worked. So basically, we filled out the comment cards, multiple comment cards each time. We each filled them out. We also talked to the staff and requested vegan menu, clearly marked vegan menu items on the menu. Sure enough, every show is it runs for about 2.5 months, and then the next show starts and it runs for a few more months. So a few months down the road, we went to the next show, and sure enough, they had vegan items on the menu. And we're able to thank the theater manager. And then when she went up on stage to introduce the show and tell you about the shows that are coming up, in the next few months, and to remind to use the restrooms, the show's going to start in 5 minutes, and silence your phone, and sign up, here's all the perks for being a season ticket holder and all that. She goes, speaking of that, these comment cards we take really seriously. So, for example, that couple over there who are season ticket holders, they're also vegans, and they've requested vegan items for the menu, and now we have them for everyone to enjoy. And so she announced that in front of 300 people, and this was probably a couple of years ago. We still go, we're still season ticket holders, and I was, in fact, we were there a few weeks ago, and we met with her again. And not only do they still have the vegan menu items, it's become better, more popular, more robust, more filling, more exciting. They also added a vegan dessert option, which they never had before. They just had sorbet, but now they have like vegan chocolate raspberry cake. And and what I noticed, Kimberly, when I looked around, was that we're at a 4-top table with some strangers. That's part of the fun. You get to know other people at dinner theater. And the woman next to me ordered the vegan menu item, which would not have existed if my wife and I had not requested this, which cost us no money, just cost us our time to fill out comment cards and have some conversations. And then I looked over at the table to my left, and someone else had the vegan item because my wife and I ordered it, so we knew what it was. Clearly, we could see it. And again, this wouldn't have happened. And once again, and we thanked her. We thanked her for having like the dessert item, and we even told her we came back. We bought extra tickets to come back and watch another show, and because of how much we enjoyed it, and we bring our friends and family, and they order the plant-based meals, and thanks for having them. And so she got on stage again in front of 300 people and brought attention to us once again, said, hey, we really take our comment cards seriously, so please let us know if the things we can do better, things you'd like to see, future shows, anything we can do differently in the kitchen, whatever. And she said, for example, we've got these season ticket holders who are vegans, and now we have multiple vegan menu items for everyone to enjoy. And I'll tell you, Kimberly, I don't know if she only tells that story when we're there. She might even tell it on all these other nights. And what that does is it plants that seed in people's head that, wow, these individuals spoke up. They were listened to. It made a difference. It actually literally changed the menu. We literally changed the menu. We added items that did not exist. And now people who 9 out of 10 times would have eaten cows, would have eaten pigs, would have eaten chickens, would have eaten fish that night, chose to do something else. I mean, the woman next to me wasn't vegetarian or anything like that. That's just the item that she picked. Where she normally would have eaten animals, but for that meal, she didn't. And I know that happens to so many other people all year long. And all that took was, and I spell it out with our strong V, that took our, some of our communication skills, took some of our, talents of being persuasive with our writing and with our conversation. But again, it didn't take any money. And also a couple other examples, really quickly. There's a guy that I met at an animal rights conference. He's a website designer, really, really good. So good that he has like 400,000 YouTube subscribers, apparently, who learned from him. And I just met up with him briefly at this animal rights conference, and he told me that he volunteers his services. So his skills that he has cultivated, that he went to school for to learn or whatever, again, doesn't cost him money, just costs him time and his current skill set. So he volunteers his services for animal rights organizations so they can build better websites and save tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on staff wages that they would have had to pay for someone else. And now they can use that for effective vegan outreach. There's another company, Fairwinds Cruises. They're in Hawaii. They're a very popular boating company. No one goes there for their vegan food. They go there for the snorkeling. That's what they do. They're a snorkeling and diving and boating company.
Okay.
All right. And they have during COVID, they decided to do 100% plant-based food commitment, which they still do to this day. It's been three,
Nice.
4 years now. And so they feed about 1,000, probably more than that, but let's say about 1,000 meals per day
Hmm.
to a 99% non-vegan audience. People who are on vacation, who are just there to go snorkel, but they have a commitment to, they have like these jackfruit tacos and these
Nice.
chickpea tuna salad, and they have vegan baked goods, cookies that the family makes, and they grow a lot in their own garden. And
Hmm.
again, it just took switching of philosophy and changing their approach. So now they feed, I mean, it sounds really impressive, 1,000 vegan meals a day, until you learn about Food for Life Global that does 1 million vegan meals a
Right.
day. But still, but they're a small independent company on one little Hawaiian island, and they're making a big difference because
Yeah.
all that was a shift in their ingredients, and and their commitment to more compassionate living. And and there's so many other things. Like the last one I'll tell you, because I'm kind of proud of it, is, like I said, I don't have a lot of money. I'm working on it. There's this whole idea of earning to give. Peter
Mm.
Singer and William McCaskill write about that, where you don't have to follow your passion and do all this altruistic work. You can go find if learn the skills and go get a high paying job so that you can earn lots of money to then give it away to the most effective charities, or at least
Hmm.
donate a portion of it, or a significant portion of it. And I've done some of that in the past as well, some earning to give, where I don't love my job, but it pays really well, and and then I'm able to do more.
Hmm.
But I really wanted to help out. There's this animal sanctuary fundraiser, their annual gala event. And I mean, my wife and I could barely even, at the time, and well, still today, probably, we could barely even afford the $150 tickets to go. Um, and then once you're there, you bid, there's a silent auction and a live auction,
Mm.
where you can bid on. The live auction is with an auctioneer and everything, and it's fun to listen to him, and he's auctioning off like these $5,000 trips to Mexico that are, timeshares that are donated by friends and family of the sanctuary, and these high end, these higher end things that are worth thousands of dollars. But I knew they had a silent auction. And so one of the things I have is a really big network. I
Mm.
work with over 150 plant-based companies. I mean, I work with an incredible number of companies, and I get tens of thousands of products donated worth hundreds of thousands of dollars every year that I take on tour. I mean, I've got suitcases full of them right now that I'm driving up to Seattle in a couple of days to distribute on tour. And I have thousands of products arriving at my house this week alone, from bags of vegan jerky to oat milk latte, plant-based coffees, to um, all kinds of food snacks and energy bars and sports nutrition supplements. Anyway, that's what I'm really, really good at. Like that's my, I've been in this plant-based nutrition industry for decades, and I just know so many people.
Mm.
So what I did was I just sent a few emails. Took me a few minutes. That's it. Took me minutes. And I had thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff donated: apparel, full size sports nutrition products,
Mm.
books, food products, you name it. And they had this audacious goal of raising over $200,000 in one evening for this animal sanctuary.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they surpassed it. And I played a role in that by recruiting thousands of dollars. I didn't have to pay for any of that stuff. I didn't
Mhm.
have the resources, but because of my network, which we all have some sort of network, I was able to get all these products donated that people bid on, and they raised thousands of dollars just from my items that I donated alone. And that contributed to raising nearly $250,000 for this animal sanctuary that is what I would consider very impactful animal sanctuary. I actually wrote about them in my book because they
Mhm.
get as many as 5 to 10,000 people coming out to visit in a single day when they do a fall festival or a carnival. And so they're not just housing and feeding animals, but they're reaching the general public to the
Mhm.
tune of tens of thousands of people a year, changing hearts and minds and menus and meal plans, and being really impactful.
Yeah.
And so many more examples, Kimberly, but they're all in the book about, you can
Yeah.
volunteer your skills and talents and strengths and your time and all of that without having to open up your wallet. You can still really help so many animals, and you can measure it, you can quantify it. I show people in the book how to quantify it. I can
Mm.
spare a chicken's life for 33 cents, you know, or how you can help spread the message about something and get policies, legislation passed by being part of a political campaign, or so many other things that we cover in the book that shows how to make a measurable difference. And I'm really proud of how it turned out, and it comes out so soon, June
Mhm.
25th. It's gonna be in bookstores, every major bookstore in North America. Super excited about it. And the only thing I'm bummed, but I'm learning to let go, is that I'm here in Oregon, and I asked my wife if she could open up the mail because, like I told you, I have all these products arriving.
Mhm.
Nutritional yeast arrived, and packages of all these products arrived. And so we're doing a FaceTime video just yesterday, and she's opened up boxes. Okay, another product, another this, and then she opened a box, and there was my new book, like the final thing in
Yeah.
hardcover. Which I only have. I know you can see this, not everyone else can, but this
Mhm.
is back, like you can see an advanced copy. It says on it, it's like not for
Uh-huh.
sale.
Yeah.
Not the real thing. I mean,
Right.
it's 99%, but it's not the real deal. So my wife, so the book is already at home, and I don't get home for another week because I'm on tour in
Oh.
Seattle next, and so it's there waiting for me to see the hardcover with all the endorsements from Tabitha
Mhm.
Brown and Rich Roll and Dan Buettner and Carly Bodrug and Kathy Freston, and so uh, I can't wait to
Mhm.
see it, like the real deal. Like, even though it's my sixth book, it's still exciting. Every single time is exciting.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait for it to come out in the world. And it's so much better than I can even articulate it. It really is. Like, I say that with no ego attached to it. I've just read it like 20 times recently during the editing process, and with all these podcasts that I'm doing, just to have it top of mind where I could share
Mhm.
these very precise stories and examples. And it's just so good. I just enjoy it every single time that
Yeah.
I even though I know what comes up next. I know what the conclusion chapter is. I know what the vegan strong method is, or the vegan Kaizen system, or I know all the very unique stories and chapters, and I still just can't
Mhm.
wait to dive in. And that tells me that if I do that as an author who's worked on it for 2.5 years and I still get excited, and there were a
Mhm.
team of 5 editors that worked on it, including non-vegans, just people who were book editors and who
Mhm.
loved it, that tells me the general audience is gonna really love it too. Like,
Yep.
I'm so sure of it, and I know it's gonna be like a Peter Singer or William McCaskill book, where it is gonna help funnel millions of dollars into the most effective animal charity organizations, which have been determined by animal charity evaluators and Charity Navigator and other organizations that specialize in that particular thing. And and that's what I'm excited about, is actually to see the difference. Like, I want to watch what happens in
Yeah.
2025, 2026. What happens when the book's been out for a year or two with the vegan
Mhm.
movement, and
Right.
how people respond to their support to most effective organizations, how they respond with their support to uh, plant-based products. Um, because we can follow what's going on in Germany and in the UK, where they're having the lowest meat consumption in recorded history, or
Mm.
since the 1970s. I write about that in the book, and how that's working. It's largely through food science and innovation and representation, and having those products available, and
Mhm.
giving people different choices, and doing a plant-based by default approach, and putting plant-based and vegan items on menus in every restaurant and in grocery stores, and promoting them, and bringing the cost down. And all this is in the book, which is why I'm so excited that the book is a form of effective altruism in and of itself. It's
Yeah.
utility. Like, it's a tool.
Mhm.
And it just happens to be a really good read that people,
Yeah.
I think, will be really sucked into the stories, and want
Mhm.
to get to know more and learn more about these organizations, and the massive difference they make in the world.
Mhm. I love about kind of the whole thing is that there are these stories of this incredible way to use money as a way to improve the world and make an impact on the animals who are suffering. But like you just talked through a few moments ago, it's not just about the money because there's this idea, right, that veganism already is this thing for the elite people or people with money and that the rest of us normies just, it's not something we can do. But the fact that there are all of these different ways where we don't need to spend money. And I love that you're pointing people to, like, hey, what are you good at? Because what you're good at can be really effective. And if you just leverage that in a different way and see a new perspective, and it's the whole thing is super inspiring. And I too cannot wait for it to be out in the world for people to read. And it really hits. I think it's going to impact so many different kinds of people because it hits so many different options, and I really love that. That's my favorite thing about it.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. And you could tell I'm still being a little bit vague. I gave some examples, but like we didn't even talk about some of the key stories or themes in the book because I want people to discover those.
Mhm.
Like the vegan strong method is one of the most effective things we can do. It's something that I coined that expression based on co-founding Vegan Strong for over half a decade ago and being incredibly impactful in my approach of what I call the Vegan Strong method. But I want people to discover that for themselves, what that is.
Mhm.
Or this term I referenced earlier, the vegan Kaizen system. What the heck's that all about? Well,
Yeah.
it might be one of the most important approaches we can take to reduce vegan recidivism. It might be one of the most effective things we can do, yet most people don't know about it. That came from Dr. Robert Maurer and learning from him and his book about Kaizen. And so there's all these different influences that's what I love is that it's not just you can tell I'm excited about it, but it's not just my ideas. These are things I learned from others that are doing this incredible work. And to your point, one last thing here on this whole money thing. I said this on stage in Toronto just a couple weeks ago that how much would your life change if you were walking down the street and you reach in your pocket and you dropped $100, whether that was $100 bill or some 20s fell out and you don't have it anymore.
Mhm.
Your life probably wouldn't change that much. Here, living in our affluent Western society, but that $100 could spare the lives of 300 chickens.
Mhm.
Chickens that share the same wonders about the world or similar wonders about the world that we do. That on a fundamental level want to live a life free of fear, pain, and suffering. They just want to live, live and let live. And it's not that much discomfort for us to part ways with $100 here or there that could spare hundreds of animal lives.
Mhm.
And also think about how far William McCaskill gives this great example in his book that if you were to double, like if you were to wake up tomorrow and you doubled your annual salary, the annual salary in the U.S. is around $50,000
Mhm.
today. If you were to double that, like how would your life change?
Mhm.
And he talks about for the poorest people in the world, he uses an Indian farmer in India as an example, that for $220, you could double his income. Again, the poorest people in the world.
Mhm.
Like imagine what that could do to
Yeah.
change someone's life in just a couple $100. Yet you or I may not even notice at the end of the year. We might notice this week, if we're
Mhm.
trying to budget something this week or this month. But at the end of the year, we're doing taxes, whatever, and we got to pay an extra $220. It's probably not going to change our life yet. For this poor farmer, it could change his or her entire world.
Mhm.
It's just like me or you getting an extra 50 or $100,000 or whatever would double our annual income. And just I'm just using based on
Yeah.
annual statistics. No idea what either one of us make. But I'm just saying anyone can fill in the blank for themselves. And I give those scenarios in the book as well. That my perspective is it's kind of like this my moral position that I take and that I try to address in this book is that especially with small amounts of money, let's say $100, if this can bring so much more value to someone else's life
Mhm.
than it can to me, I feel a responsibility, especially if I claim to care about reducing animal suffering. I'm doing all these other things, holding signs or doing all this other stuff, realizing that just how effective I can be by contributing to the most effective organizations that have been evaluated, scrutinized, compared to thousands of other organizations, and determined to be the best, then I feel an obligation to part ways with that. I'm not saying give 50% of your income. At the most, I'm saying 10% in the book, and how that can spare 16,000 animal lives compared to the typical 365 animal lives the average vegan will spare every year. Do you want to just spare a few hundred lives, or would you like to spare 8,000 or 16,000 by doing 5 or 10% of your annual income, especially if you're already someone who enthusiastically contributes to shopping for vegan goods and supports vegan authors and buys vegan food and goes to vegan restaurants and orders the vegan menu item at the mainstream restaurant. Like, just think about your level of comfort and how that won't really change all that much, but how this would literally change the life of hundreds or even thousands of animals here or abroad. And always keep it in the back of your mind. And I write about this in detail in the book. Have plenty of examples of how far the U.S. dollar stretches outside of our country's borders. And that's why I will tell you, one of the organizations that I'm committed to donating to is Dharma Voices for Animals. They're the only Buddhist animal rights global organization in the world. As far as an international organization, they're the only one. They do some great stuff. I give a compelling story in the book about how a monk spared the lives of 100,000 primates that were going to be deported to China to be used in animal experimentation. But because of his connections with Parliament, he was able to stop that from happening. And he's connected to Dharma Voices for Animals, and they mostly work out in like Sri Lanka and Thailand and Vietnam and all that, where I just came from Thailand recently. I got my book translated into Thai. I was there recently in Bangkok and some surrounding cities, and I know firsthand how far the US dollar goes in part of the world that can really do a lot with it. So much, stretch so much further than it will domestically. And so I give that perspective, and Peter Singer, of course, and William McCaskill write all about that in their books as well. That's why when they're talking about helping the world's poorest people, it's those in Africa, it's those in certain Asian countries. It's the real, the real poor, not necessarily our perception of poor, but people who quite literally, no exaggeration, have to walk 7 miles each way just to get clean water every single day, and carry it on their head back to their village and hope their kids get clean water and don't die from diarrhea. Like real poverty, where I'm trying to decide what thing to hang up on my wall at home, whereas others have a wall made out of mud, not even wood, just a mud wall, and sleep on piles of garbage. That's the reality. And there's so many crazy statistics. I just read on my flight out here when I was rereading William McCaskill's book about something like 85% of the world lives on less than $11,000 a year.
Wow.
Like lives on just like $4 a day. It's really only a handful of countries that are affluent. Like it's and then of course the highest populated places, like India and Indonesia and all that, just tons of poverty, huge population in Africa, of course, of the whole continent, and then many other poor Asian countries that are a very high population. And so you look at all of that in Central and South America wrapped in the affluent countries, aside from the United States, I mean, pretty small populations. Canada, Australia, nobody lives there. They don't. I mean, you just talk about globally. The numbers are staggering when you read them. And I have the book right next to me. It's just unbelievable that most of the world is just in this abject poverty, just way, way, way below the poverty line in the United States. I mean, I'm talking $1,500 a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
Very low. So I'm just trying to apply that same logic, that same philosophy to helping the animals that are suffering the most. And that means looking outside of our country's borders too. And that's what I'm committed to doing. And I hope that more people will do the same, and that we can collectively come together and make this huge, massive impact for animals. And I'm just overwhelmingly excited for this book, and I'm grateful that I was able to put it together with an incredible team I interviewed 40 people, and then I had a whole team at the publishing house and all these editors and people who worked on it for years to make it exceptional. And
Yeah.
so here we come.
Yeah. Oh, Robert, this has been so inspiring and just I I'm excited and I've already read the book. I'm excited about it and I can't wait, like I said, for it to be in the world. I can't wait for people to hear this episode, for them to hear it right from you and hear your inspiration, your enthusiasm, and just how much good we can do in the world together is I think we're going to be amazed as people start to become more aware of this from the farmed animal perspective, and we can really start to shift that. Thank you so much for this. But before you go, I have one more question for you, and I cannot wait to hear your answer. Tell me a hummus story or about your favorite hummus.
Boy, do I have a hummus story for you. And again, this ties in right to the first sentence that I told you at the beginning of this interview, that I'm right here in my hometown, and that's where this hummus story happened. As you know, and all the listeners now know, if they tuned in at the beginning, I became vegan back in 1995, and I wasn't sure what to eat. I knew what I did not want to eat, and once I figured out certain things to eat, hummus was one of them. But I didn't just eat hummus. I would go to the local co-op and I would buy packages of Eve's Veggie Cuisine hot dogs,
Yeah.
or sometimes Canadian bacon or ham or whatever. There's all this plant-based, these plant-based meats, and I would get containers of hummus, and I would just dip hot dogs and just eat them like a popsicle. I mean, imagine dipping like a like a vanilla popsicle into chocolate fudge and letting it solidify. I used, and I often didn't use utensils. Kid in the 90s, high school kid, we use our hands, right? So I would use hot dogs as a fork or as a knife or as a spoon. I would use plant-based hot dogs to dip hummus. I would eat the entire container. And again, I was, aspiring bodybuilder, so I was taking in a lot of calories. And then what I discovered was that I could eat entire loaves of warm French bread. It was just the best, and it was cheap. I was on a budget. I was always budget conscious. I would buy these loaves of bread for like $1.49 back then. I later found out when I read the ingredients, it's like read the calories. It's 1,100 calories in a single loaf, and I could eat like that in one sitting. So I would take this loaf of French bread, warm, fluffy. I love it. Everybody loves it. And I would again get containers of hummus and just dip just every nook and cranny, the hot dogs would miss, or the little. I didn't use chips. I would use like vegan bologna triangles. I would rip off chunks of vegan bologna and scrape in there, and then whatever I couldn't get with the hot dogs or the bologna, I would use bread, and I would soak up everything else and eat the loaves of bread and containers of hummus. And that was my early vegan diet. Like that was my vegan diet back in the day. So I have a long, rich history with hummus. So many empty containers, you wouldn't even know what to do with them. And along with that story, right in this bedroom next to me in this closet, I used to save all the wrappers of these tofu hot dogs because this is way before social media, but I wanted to get sponsored by a vegan meat company.
Yeah.
And so I saved, I'm sure not sanitary whatsoever, just these empty plastic, hot dog, containers. I mean, feet tall. They were just a few feet tall in the closet of just hundreds of them. And I never got sponsored by Eve's Veggie Cuisine, but that was part of my hummus story. And to this day, just recently, I was traveling. I'm on the road a lot, city to city, bookstore to bookstore. Pulled into a grocery store. I think it was too late at night. No restaurants open. I went back down memory lane. Went and got some tofu hot dogs, container hummus. I was sitting in the car. I'm 44 years old. Sitting in the driver's seat of a vehicle, parked in a parking lot, using a tofu hot dog as a fork, knife, and spoon, and dipping into hummus. And I was actually, I was self-aware, like
Mhm.
at that moment, like this is taking me back. I mean, I've been vegan for over a quarter of a century and I haven't evolved. Like I was aware of that. Like it was, and I kind of laughed at it.
Mhm.
And I had it like in the console of the car, like these hot dogs, like
Cup holder.
swirling around. Yeah. And just going through the entire container of hummus because yeah, I mean, so much has changed in the vegan food scene in the last couple of decades. Yet here I am back at my
Mhm.
roots, and I don't even know what town I was in or where I was, but it was something I knew I could fall back on. Was
Mhm.
the old tofu hot dog and hummus. So you know what? I'm actually heading to the grocery store here in my hometown just because of this story. I'm gonna get some tofu hot dogs and some hummus. This is where it all started. This is where it started in this
Yeah.
town. This is where I first did this 28 years ago. So I'm going to do it. Mark my words. Today I'm going to go get hummus and some vegan hot dogs, and I'm going to relive my early days of veganism.
Yes. If you feel so inclined, please send me a photo.
Oh, I will. I will. And actually, I took photos when I was doing this a few months ago because it was just so. It was just this iconic moment of like self reflection of like,
Mhm.
here I am all these years later as an
Yeah.
adult, like almost closer to 50 than 40. And this is what I'm doing in the front seat of a car.
Yep.
And so I took pictures of it because it was I think I sent it to my wife. I'm like, look, like here's dinner. Um, and so I will take some photos and you know what? I might even get some French bread too. Like,
Yeah.
why not have a party?
Do it. Go
Why
big.
not do it in style? Why not, yeah, go
Exactly.
big. Yeah, let's just
Yeah.
do it. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I love it. Oh, and I'm so glad that I had the visual here, and I'm sorry that the listeners won't, of you miming the
Oh
hot
yeah, yeah,
dog
yeah. I'm
in the
just
hummus. Oh,
talking
the
with my
picture is
hands the whole
perfect.
time. Yeah.
Robert, thank you so, so much for this. I've loved every moment of this, and I'm so grateful that we had this time together.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate your time today, and thanks for this opportunity, and for me to share, and for your enthusiasm for the Impactful Vegan as well, and for letting all your listeners know about it, and hopefully people will check that out at impactfulvegan.com. Go download sample free chapter and uh, sign up for some free bonuses and all that, and all the info is on our website impactfulvegan.com, and find me online, and feel free to connect anytime.
Sounds good. Thank you. Welcome back. Robert's passion for doing the right thing in the most effective and impactful way is so inspiring. As a reminder, you can put your strong V into practice right now. Remember when Robert mentioned that earlier in the episode? As a refresher, the strong V stands for skills, talents, resources, other strengths, network, generosity, and volunteering. How will you use your strong V to make a difference? To connect with Robert, visit his website, impactfulvegan.com. Follow him on Instagram and Facebook at Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, on Twitter at Robert Cheeke, and on YouTube at Robert Cheeke Show. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, please give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating and leave a review. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. Be sure to share these episodes with your friends. If you're finding something good here, they will too. If you're a vegan or know a vegan who would be a great fit for the podcast, follow the Be a Guest link in the show notes. Fill out the quiz, and I'll be in touch. Get on my mailing list and grab 3 super fun and easy recipes as a thank you. Check out the Support the Podcast tab on my website for more info on how you can help support this show as a monthly contributor or by sponsoring episodes. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus, and visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Finally, I would love to hear from you. What do you need help with? Is there a topic you want to hear covered on a future episode? DM me on Instagram or send me an email at info@didyouBringTheHummus.com. Thanks for listening.